Welcome. Friday, September 2nd, 2022, the Ken Matthews Report. As we kick off Labor Day weekend. A lot of people kicking it off today. Whatever you do, be safe. I hope you get some quality time with your family. And most importantly, I hope you get more subscribers for subscribestar.com. I'm depending on you. I had to take a few minutes and just kind of take a breath here because for the first segment of today's report, and you know it's usually in two segments, sometimes we add a bonus segment, I'm just going to focus on the speech that Joe Biden gave last night. So what I did is, once my anger dissipated and my shock and amazement dissipated, I took a whole bunch of notes on it. And if you bear with me, I'll go over some of the things he said. And then you can decide who Joe Biden is closer to based on his content. Stalin, Mussolini, Castro, Hitler, or Obama. Now, most liberals would stop the video right now. They'd be so angry. And then they'd start misquoting me. But there are things that Joe Biden did and said last night that are no different than totalitarian governments and dictators and kings throughout history. So I'm going to point some of that out to you. Don't get me wrong. I would love to take the next 30 minutes and just rip Joe a new one, but I'm sure Jill does that every day. So I'm calling this report The Desperate Delaware Dictator, because you know I like alliteration. The desperate Delaware dictator is still delusional. Keep in mind, totalitarians and dictators love props. The first thing that I found offensive about the speech is it was a political speech on national property or whatever. I mean, he took one of the great buildings, one of the pivotal historic buildings, Independence Hall. Been there several times. I used to work one block from it. And you know how much I like history, and when I worked in Philadelphia, I used to one block, so I could go and just have my lunch right in front of these historical monuments, or where the founding fathers were sitting over 200 years ago. So that was kind of cool. He ruined that. I mean, I'll never look at Independence Hall the same, because we had a desperate Delaware dictator using United States Marines in dress blues as props. When you go through and look at dictators, they surround themselves with the military as props. And there goes my on-air light. So, all right, something's wrong with it. I don't know it. You know, maybe they're trying to shut down this video, and all they could get is the on-air light. We're going to work on that. Throughout history, dictators and totalitarians and a host of other people, fascist, communists, Nazis. I mean, look at pictures of Hitler. Okay, they used two things as props. The hard progressive left. They used the military as a prop, not because they love the military. They put the military there to enforce their threats. And I'm going to get to this in a minute, because I took a full transcript of the speech from the New York Times. I did that on purpose because the New York Times will be the most flattering, because they're in love with Biden and Obama and his whole team, because most of Biden's team is with Obama, from Obama. It is Obama. And then a lot of the people in Biden's team are on it from Clinton. So basically, we have the Biden administration. But dictators They don't surround themselves with military or have two dress blue Marines at what was supposed to be an event for the public, and it turned into a vicious campaign speech. But I'm not just going to say all this stuff because you're going to hear the talking points. I'm going to go through it and let you decide if the desperate Delaware dictator, the angry little man, Joe Biden, who's obviously delusional. Some people say he's suffering from dementia. Some people say, I mean, I've read so much stuff about his health condition. It just appears to me that one of the reasons he's out of circulation so often, whatever is wrong with him, they have to get him, I don't know if it's drugged up or rehearsed or whatever, so he could actually hold fast for 30 minutes or 45 minutes or whatever. We know he can't make it through much without a teleprompter, and even when he does, he butchers it. I have always believed, like millions of other Americans, that Biden is just a stand-in puppet for Obama and whoever runs Obama. So I'm thinking Biden is probably a puppet of Obama, meaning Obama, Valerie Jarrett, Susan Rice, a host of other people from the Clinton and former Biden administrations probably meet with Obama on a weekly basis. And Biden, if you go through the history, you'll see that Biden is surrounded by Obama worshipers. And a lot of the Obama worshipers worship communist China. Something else I want to point out to you as we review the transcript of this, and I appreciate you letting me go through it, because again, it took me a cup of coffee and an extra banana this morning to calm down, because it's so tempting after you see the totalitarian props, and you notice when the blue lights, you know, it was red, white, and blue. Do you notice how much red light there was? At one point, the entire set was covered in red, and there's two uniformed soldiers, the best war fighters we have, Marines. I know I just ticked off some people like the Army. I'm sorry. You can all kick my ass, so don't worry about it. You know I love all the military. So you got two uniformed soldiers. You've got the red hue over the presidential flag and the gold-fringed American flag. I encourage you to look that up. That might be a whole new concept to someone. You may think the gold fringe is on there just because it looks pretty. That would be as dumb as saying the red stripe on the pants of a Marine dress uniform is because it looks cool. So I would encourage people to dig deep into what happened last night, because it was historic. And not in a good way. It was historic in the way that many of us on the conservative side and who pay attention to history, we said this would happen. So welcome to September. We basically just had, and I'll read the segments from the speech, we had a sitting U.S. president being run by a former president who declared war on part of the American people. And he did it using the U.S. military, the orange-fringed American flag and the presidential flag, and he did it where the Declaration of Independence was signed and where the Constitution was debated. This is so historic because we've never had such a desperate, angry, delusional dictator in this country. He's already surpassed anything. The comments he makes about you and me and President Trump and our ideals, the comments he makes about anyone. We've never had anything like that. I know a lot of you think, well, what about President Trump on Twitter? If you noticed, did President Trump ever attack the American people? I mean, we know he attacked Obama and Hillary, and they have such thin skin, and we get it. But I never even had a problem with a lot of the things that were going on in this country until I saw the most powerful men and women in the world turn on you and me. In other words, I get that Biden's going to attack Donald Trump because Donald Trump scares the crap out of most middle-aged white liberal men. Unfortunately, that's just the way it is. Because he's type A, he's a charger, he's already successful, so he didn't have to come to Congress or the Senate and whore himself out like some of the people that I've met. So he already worries the people in power. Because some of the people in power, they became millionaires and billionaires because they used you and me they used their government position. As soon as they got to the government, their game changed and they started to build their resume. So that's who Joe Biden is. And many people in government, both on the left and the right. One of the reasons Trump scares people so much is he's obviously opinionated, but he gets stuff done. And government's job is not to get stuff done or completed. That's why we hear the same talking points since 2008. That's why I know Obama was critical in writing this speech, probably with Susan Rice, probably with some of Obama's former speechwriters. All right, let's review some of the speech. I have the transcript. And this, again, I just want you to think about it. It was so tempting to come on the first segment of the show and just scream and yell. But once you hear the speech, and many people have not heard the whole speech. And this is the thing about controlling the mindset of the American people and propaganda. A little bit of truth wrapped neatly in a lie, and you make sure the lie is really pretty, like the wrapping paper. Did you ever get a gift and the wrapping? Oh, I don't even want to unwrap this. It's so beautiful. And most of the Democrat lies are beautiful. We're all going to have energy. We're all going to have a job. It's going to be peace. It's going to be love and joy. And then, whoops, and then the truth is inside. And that truth is, you either agree with me or I will force you to. So, here we are. All right. So, Joe Biden, an old, doddering, desperate Delaware dictator. His wife has to help him in and out of vehicles. And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not making fun of people that... I'm just saying that the man is not physically, mentally, psychologically, or emotionally fit to be in the Oval Office, let alone in charge of the greatest military on earth. And didn't you find it interesting that there are those two Marines, like statues at attention, being used as props? What do the Democrats love to use as props? Children, military. Okay? Why? Because of the emotional reaction. So a lot of people that, well, there's going to be some people that don't critically think, like many of the people that voted for Biden. Now, many are leaving, but there's going to be people that saw that speech last night, and when they heard Biden attacking you and me, because I'm a proud Trump supporter, I'm open about being American first. And you know and I know American first is not racist. Make America great again is not racist or sexist. You know it and I know it. But the news media, because they are, in a way, they're prostitutes. I mean, well, I don't like to insult prostitutes because I would imagine some prostitutes work very hard. So I don't mean to. Let me come up with something else. The media is sellouts. And for years, since 2015 or 16, they've helped the Democrat Party demonize everything. Christian evangelicals, gun owners, white people, entrepreneurial people that are wealthy and high profile, but don't agree with them. Let's go to the speech. And I'm not going to read all of it, but I'm going to go through some things that I want you to think about. Okay? This is where America made its Declaration of Independence to the world more than 2 centuries ago, with a unique idea among nations that in America we're all created equal. This is where the United States Constitution was written and debated. This is where we set in motion the most extraordinary experiment of self-government the world has ever known. There's nothing self-governing about where we are September 2nd, 2022. There's no individualism in it. There's no there's nothing self-governing when today in New York, your kid cannot learn or go to school if he hasn't been vaccinated or isn't wearing a mask. That's not self-governance. That's a dictatorship. But as I stand here tonight, said Joe Biden, equality and democracy are under assault. We do ourselves no favor to pretend otherwise. Something else I want you to pay attention to. Now, I'm not going to get through the whole thing, or I'm not going to read the whole thing. But if you have a chance, turn off NPR and Fox and MSNBC. Get the transcript. It looks like the New York Times lets you print out a copy completely. I want you to read it and ask yourself, why didn't Joe Biden mention any real enemy of America? The entire speech, not once did he talk about communist China or, and I don't agree with him on a lot of this, but you know the latest narrative has been Russia, 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 Putin, Putin, Putin. Remember? So he goes through an entire speech. He opens the speech with, our nation's at risk. We're under attack. And then he says it's, in some cases, you and me. I mean, I don't know where you are, but I'm a MAGA person. I don't have a problem with it. There's nothing to be ashamed of. The whole process of the last 5 years was to get you, if you're a flag-waving, America-loving Christian who misses the organization and the confidence America once had. It's to get you to feel guilty about that. You're supposed to feel guilty. I don't know if I want to put up an American flag. I mean, that's asking for trouble. This is where the Democrats have gotten this country. So you can confidently put up a BLM flag in your yard because I've seen them. But now you have to think twice. This is where the Democrats have moved this country. This is by design. It's to weaken and divide the country. But we have, at the very least, 74 million people that elected Donald Trump in 2020, which people are still denying. I heard Rick Santorum on Newsmax, and he had a great analysis this morning. He had a really good analysis, former Senator Rick Santorum from Pennsylvania. But even he's been told, hey, back off the stolen election thing. And there's a reason for that, and I'll get to it. But as I stand here tonight, said Joe Biden, last night, equality and democracy are under assault. We do ourselves no favor to pretend otherwise. So tonight I've come to this place where it all began to speak as plainly as I can to the nation about the threats we face, about the power we have in our hands to meet these threats, and about the incredible future that lies in front of us if we only choose to. But first, we must be honest with each other and ourselves, said Joe Biden. Listen carefully to what's supposed to be a non-political, unbiased speech at an American landmark where the United States Marines are in the photo. They are the backdrop. In theater, that's called props. You have a stage. What's the backdrop? Independence Hall. How do you like the stage? Red and blue, predominantly red, if you watched it. What about props? Well, let's have some Marines there because they're totally badass warriors in their dress blues. What about some flags? Let's put a gold fringe flag behind Biden, and then we'll have the presidential flag. Yes, yes, I like it. I like it. It's very Stalin-esque. And then the uniter, the great uniter, the courteous Uncle Joe. At least we have a good guy in office now, said one of my neighbors, and I knew then that they had lost their mind. Too much of what's happening in our country today is not normal, said Joe Biden. Donald Trump and the MAGA Republicans represent an extremism that threatens the very foundation of our republic. Now, this sticks out for a couple reasons. Joe Biden just put you and me in the category of a threat to, and it's rare because they usually call it a democracy. Because as you know, people on the left, little slow to understand how the government works. And they know how to steal it. Some people on the left, but they don't. You go up to any political science major and say, what type of government do we have? See if they say constitutional republic. So it's rare. So to me, that is the defining moment in this speech. Now listen carefully again. Too much of what is happening in our country today is not normal. I want you to think about everything that's happening in our country today that you would consider not normal. Would it be an FBI raid? Would it be your 9-year-old wanting to have his you-know-what removed because he wants to be a girl now because his teacher encouraged him to do it? Would it be almost 1 million illegals crossing the border every month? But what is not normal? You don't have to describe it because it's designed. This is a speech designed not to unite America. It's designed to jack up angry leftists. And it's designed to scare you and me. I don't know about you, but I'm not really that scared. The Marines I know love America more than they love Joe Biden. So he may be using them as props, but I have more faith in a U.S. Marine or a veteran in the United States, just like I have faith in a farmer or my neighbor or a local sheriff, more than anybody in the Biden regime. But they were put there to scare you. So you've got the U.S. military represented at a political event, which is a constitutional violation. You can't use them as props. On a historical landmark, which is, I guess, I don't know what they call it technically, but that's federal property. And then you've got a desperate Delaware dictator, drooling and delusional. And again, I want to point out how many times I use the D word there, because I love alliteration. Desperate Delaware dictator, drooling, delusional. Thank you. Too much of what's happening in our country today is not normal. Donald Trump and the MAGA Republicans represent an extremism that threatens the very foundation of our republic. This could be the first time this has ever been said by a president. Probably the first time in history that a sitting puppet, Joe Biden, attacked an entire giant part of the American population and the guy they voted for and said, you and I are a threat to the American republic. And there's the military. What type of message is that? And then he goes, and he did this because the lawyer said you need to settle down. So now I want to be very clear up front. Not every Republican, not even the majority of Republicans, are MAGA Republicans. Not every Republican embraces their extreme ideology. I know, because I've been able to work with these mainstream Republicans. So in one fell swoop, he just said the same thing again. Not everybody has an extreme ideology like MAGA. And something else I want you to think about. Why no mention of Russia or communist China or fentanyl or just some of the big problems we have in this country today? Suicide, all-time high. Fentanyl, #1 death for people aged what is it, 40 to 65 now? All this stuff going on, including communist China being so far, penetrating so far into our commerce and our government and our schools and Joe Biden's bank account, if you believe Hunter and James and Frank and what they were talking about, the Bidens. And yet here he is, 8 weeks before the midterm election, labeling half of the people that'll vote in that midterm as a threat to the republic. Now, again, it's a simple question, especially if you're on the left, if you're a Democrat. Do you really think that's unifying the country? But there's no question today, he says, that the Republican Party is dominated, driven, and intimidated by Donald Trump and MAGA Republicans. And they are a threat to this country again and again and again. These are hard things, but I'm an American president, said Joe Biden. Well, not really, but we'll get to that hopefully by the middle of the month. I'm not a president of red America or blue America. See, Obama loves that line probably as much as he loves himself, and that's why it's in there, because Obama helped write this speech. Not red America or blue America, but all of America. Yeah, that's why there's still Americans in jail from January 6th, because they trespassed. That's why you kicked out tens of thousands of people in the U.S. military, because they didn't do what you told and take the experimental injection. That's why when people in the Marines were writing you, Mr. President, saying, I'm not right, I'm sick now, what's wrong with this vaccine? You didn't respond. But yet there you are, using them as props. The desperate Delaware dictator, drooling and delusional. You can call him Joe Biden. I believe it's my duty to level with you, to tell you the truth no matter how difficult, no matter how painful. So we have a pathological liar who inappropriately touches children, who threatened the Ukraine that if they didn't fire the DA that's investigating his son, he'll cut off $1 billion in aid. That guy. The guy that threatens to beat you up on the campaign trail if you disagree with him. That guy. The guy that can't make it up steps. But I don't want to pick on the physicality. Let's just stick with the leeching off America for 50 years. 50 years. This fool has been getting paid by the American taxpayer. And they finally got someone who can think just enough to read a teleprompter. But this is Obama's dream. Because as you know, Obama is a huge fan of communist China. And remember, no mention in this speech. I'm here to tell you honestly about the threats to America. And all he could come up with is you and me were threats to America. And Trump. And make America great again. Again, I ask you, just bring some common sense to it. And if you're watching this Subscribe Star report of mine, you already have common sense. You already have discernment. You already know what's happening here. But think about all the people that don't. And think of how the news media is going to cut up pieces of this speech. And then they're going to say, here's what you're going to hear. All day today and on the Sunday shows, Labor Day weekend, you're going to hear, well, I think it was a bold speech. I think he really drew a line in the sand. I think he really put it to those Republicans, those people like Ken Matthews and the subscribers. I think he really, I think he made it perfectly clear. You guys better stop trying to take over the government and keep your mouth shut. We're not going to tolerate any more insurrections or protests, so shut up. Okay. Here, in my view, Joe Biden goes on to say, is what is true. And that's funny because he's a pathological liar. And so is his press secretary. But this is what he says. Standing before Independence Hall with the United States military on his side, just figuratively. I don't think they are on his side. I think they know what's happening. Here's what I think is true, said Joe Biden. No, he didn't even say think. He said, here's what is true. MAGA Republicans do not respect the Constitution. MAGA Republicans do not believe in the rule of law. They do not recognize the will of the people. They refuse to accept the results of a free election. And they're working right now, as I speak, in state after state, to give power to decide elections in America to partisans and cronies, empowering election deniers to undermine democracy itself. MAGA forces are determined to take this country backwards to an America where there's no right to choose, no right to privacy, no right to contraception, no right to marry who you love. There's another big Obama line, by the way. They promote authoritarian leaders, and they fan the flames of political violence that are a threat to our personal rights, to the pursuit of justice, to the rule of law, to the very soul of this country. Would you tell me what is unifying about that? Now, what it sounds like to me is a very frightened Democratic Party who knows we're waking up. And what's going to happen today, some people are going to be ticked. I mean, it was tempting to just go after Joe Biden and just wail on him on Twitter or whatever, but it's just easier to explain it. You got to ask yourself, why is a supposedly president using Marines as props, a gold-fringed flag, a red-tinted backdrop during part of it, in front of Independence Hall in Philadelphia, to tell you and the rest of the world that you and I are the biggest threat to this country. And then to go through that grocery list of how we don't respect the Constitution. That's what we wait. We bring the Constitution to every debate. And that's why they don't want to debate. This is a party and a man, a desperate little man, trapped in the corner. And that's why that was one of the most divisive speeches by any president in history. Go through, if you can, and see if you can find another case where an American president, and you know, he wasn't even using all the talking points. Like, do you notice they labeled you and me as domestic terrorists. Remember they did that? That was the big buzz. That's why January 6th happened. But nobody fell for it. So before, the speeches could say, we've got to crack down on domestic terrorism. There are people in this country. They're insurgents. But everybody knew it was crap. So now he just comes right out and says, look, it's the damn Republicans and Donald Trump. Okay, that's all I'm going to do on the speech, because I have other things to cover in the report. And I know you may be getting ready for Labor Day, or you might be watching this over the weekend. I want to thank you for doing that. As always, you've made my day by subscribing. I cannot tell you enough. I don't know how to express it enough other than to keep doing my best to bring you the truth and analysis and content that makes you laugh and makes you think at subscribestar.com. But that's the update on our desperate Delaware delusional drooling dictator. 5 Ds, baby. 5 Ds. Probably his grades in college, but 5 Ds. That's alliteration. That's what I love. And one more thing. Doesn't Joe Biden remind you of a compromised schoolyard bully who talks trash? Okay, he's on the playground, and he's poking his thumb. Sometimes he even hits you in the chest. I'll tell you another thing, MAGA. And he's talking trash because his dad is the chief of police and his uncle is the principal. Doesn't he remind you of that? And he knows, And that's what I felt last night. Joe Biden is the schoolyard bully, and he probably morphed into that because he often talks about being picked on or whatever. And like many people, sadly, too many, that are bullied or picked on, the minute they get power, it's payback time. And it doesn't matter who he's paying back. It's payback time. So he was talking a level of trash last night that in any other country would be an internal declaration of war. And he knows he can get away with it because who's on his side? The DOJ, the FBI, the Marines standing next to him, the media. But what's going to happen when the bully who thinks his dad, who's police chief, and his uncle, who's principal, what's going to happen when those people look at him and go, oh my gosh, we really made a mistake with this guy? I don't know. You'll have to tell me in the comments. All right, we'll be right back with segment 2. Sorry, segment 1 ran a little long. I'm going to call it bonus content. Some people will say, God, he just went on so long. I'm going to say, no, he gave us a bonus. So have a great Labor Day weekend. If I don't see you again, I'll see you on the next segment of this report. And I will be doing reports over the Labor Day weekend because there's going to be a couple more surprises. Yeah, I know. Woo! September. It's going to be big.